First agency this evening is the Northwest Council with Jim County.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
I think this is on, right? Yeah, okay. Again, I'm Jim Hunick with Northwest Center Against Sexual Assault. I'm the executive director of the agency. And Northwest CASA is a sexual assault center serving all of North and Northwest suburban Cook County, as well as McHenry County. And we provide comprehensive services for sexual assault victims. And by that I mean we have a 24/7 crisis line. We offer medical advocacy in the emergency rooms of hospitals, court accompaniment at the Skokie Courthouse, and Rolling Meadows Courthouse, and McHenry Courthouse. We also do prevention education, mostly in the middle and high schools in the area, so like the Maine Township high schools. We go in there and talk to the youth about how to reduce their risk for sexual violence. And I mentioned our crisis line, and as you can imagine, in the last year, things have been incredibly busy. In the last couple of months, we are averaging almost one hospital call a day. And that's where we send someone to the emergency room to be with the victim. And that can be like a 3, 4, 5 hour process. And so your funding is so needed because it's really hard for us to keep up with the demand of our services. And since it's a 24/7 operation, we have to respond. And one of the areas that we've really tried to increase our response is by recruiting graduate students to conduct internships with us. We also recruit master's level people in the community who we train how to do trauma-informed counseling. And then we provide them with ongoing clinical social work. But our bread and butter is really with the volunteer that we have on board. And they are the heart of our 24/7 response. We put them through 40 hours of training before they can respond to a hotline call. And then they're offered supervision by our volunteer coordinator because sometimes complications come up and they need backup or assistance in following through with a call.
How many volunteers do you have?
About 35. It varies. We're actually just started a 40-hour training this week, and we have, I think, 10 new volunteers coming on board, so that will really help. We serve about 800 victims of sexual violence every year, and I believe last year we served about 44 of them came from Maine Township. About 1/3 of the clients we serve are Hispanic, so we have Spanish-speaking services in all of our offices because that's a population that's really at risk. About 25% of our clients are under the age of 18, so we work with children and adolescents, children who have been victims of sexual abuse. For a lot of adolescents, they are either victims of sexual abuse or acquaintance rape or dating rape. The need is compelling. I mean, all of the benchmarks we use to kind of figure out what we needed to do are no longer in existence anymore. Again, the demands really exceed our capacity. But the resources of our clients have not greatly increased. And funds from Maine Township as well as other communities that we approach are really used so that we can just hire more staff. It all goes into the direct service, take some of the Maine Township money and blend it with other township money so we can have full-time staff delivering services. We've initiated a taxi cab service because some of our clients do not have access to private car or public transportation. So we provide taxi vouchers so they can come into the office for their appointments. We also provide some services off-site. It's not unusual that an adolescent, has difficulty coming into our office. So if we can arrange it with the school and arrange for a confidential space, we may go to the school and use an office there to counsel an adolescent. So that's determined by the scheduling of the staff, coupled with the needs of the adolescent and the resources of the school. We believe very much into doing effective work. You all need to know that whatever money you're granting to us is used to help people and help them effectively. And so all of our staff are trained in how to do trauma-informed therapy. And in the more recent days, there have been better models designed that are more research-based, evidence-based. We use cognitive processing therapy. We do trauma-informed CBT. Some of our staff are doing EMDR, which is another very effective model in working with survivors. And so we really try to stay on top of whatever developments are coming in how to effectively work with people. And we evaluate all of that. We use standardized instruments to measure the symptom picture for a survivor. And then we use that as a baseline for when they come in. And then we reevaluate that every 3 months to see how their symptom picture is changing. What's good about that is sometimes we'll identify symptoms that the survivor hasn't really articulated. So it helps us have a conversation with them about some of the things we've noticed in the trauma inventory that they may not have really much awareness of. We do semi-annual evaluations of our counseling. So we're asking clients about, are they coping better? Is there anxiety, and depression reduced, quality of life? And in our last semi-annual evaluation, over 92% of the clients reported that since they started counseling, there's been improvements in all 3 of those areas. And so it's very heartwarming to see those numbers. It's very encouraging for the staff. Some of the comments on the evaluations are things that we like to share with staff because they're very dedicated people. They want to help, and it's good for them to get that feedback. We also do follow-up calls with our crisis intervention because, as you can imagine, it's hard to evaluate crisis intervention because you can't ask somebody, 10 minutes after a crisis is resolved, how did we do? So we actually contact clients 6 months later, and we assess how they're doing so that if they need additional resources, we can provide them. And then we ask them some questions about how we did 6 months ago, either in the emergency room or in the telephone call. And over 98% of the respondents have reported that they found the help they got very helpful, the information that was helpful. They felt supported and believed. And feeling believed is really key. If there's anything that we try to educate the entire public about, is that when a survivor comes forward, it's a pretty scary moment. And so believing her or him is so crucial to how well they do in their recovery. And that's one of the reasons why we do a lot of training with law enforcement, because sometimes the questions they ask imply that the survivor was somehow responsible for their own victimization. I think that about summarizes it. If you have some questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Yes?
You had mentioned that there was increased federal funding and general state revenue support in this past year.
Yeah.
So how, and where does that show up on your budget statement here in terms of revenue?
So it'll be under the VOCA.
Okay. So that's the 550?
Yes.
750,000? And what did you get last year?
It was probably around 3 something. Where that money comes from, it's the Victims of Crime Assistance, which is federal money. And Congress increased the cap that can be released to states for law enforcement and victim services. This is the same pool of money that police departments get, and sometimes they're hiring like police social workers with it. And so we saw a significant increase, which enabled us really to bring on board another full-time advocate in our Evanston office so that we have a better presence in the Skokie courthouse. And we also were able to bring on board a part-time coordinator for our sexual assault response team, which is a coordinated effort amongst hospitals, law enforcement, and our agency to ensure that adult sexual assault survivors get victim-centered services in a very respectful and effective way.
And are you the only, it says the agreements you have with the local hospitals are that you're to be contacted.
Yes.
Are you the first point of contact, or do you
Yes.
also call other sexual abuse?
No, we have standing agreements with each of the hospitals. We actually serve 12 hospitals. And the agreement stipulates that when a survivor comes in the emergency room, they will contact us immediately. And so we send someone out, and then the survivor has the right to deny our presence, and so we'll respect that. But normally they want someone there. And then we also leave them with information about resources. We follow up with them 48 hours later to ensure that they're doing okay, see if there's anything in the information that they want to pursue.
So other agencies don't get called? You're
Right.
basically the first line? Okay.
It's just us and the police department.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then was there an increase? I know there's 44 Maine Township residents. I don't recall what last year was in terms of number of residents that you saw.
You know, I don't.
About the same?
I couldn't say for sure. I mean, I can tell you that it ebbs and flows from community to community. Like I was noting today that our numbers from Arlington Heights have increased dramatically. And I don't, sometimes it's due to our educational programming, because oftentimes if someone hears an educational program, it triggers them to want to seek assistance. But there definitely it does ebb and flow over time.
Last year, it was 47, so it's just about the same.
Thanks. Yeah.
Your fundraising efforts seem to be very effective in that you had 2 fundraisers. One was in October of last year, and one was in May of this year.
Mm-hmm.
And your net receipts from those total $45,000, which is, in looking at it, is very effective. Have you thought of maybe doing some additional fundraisers, since it seems you seem to have you folks have a pretty good green thumbs. I know it goes into those
Yeah,
expenses. In
yeah.
fact, your expenses from October for that fundraiser were, I mean, 1,300 compared to a gross revenue of 10,820 was excellent. And then you have a total income from the second one on May 2018 of 32,000. Have you thought of maybe giving a couple more of those regularly?
Yes. I mean, I think that's a relatively new position for us to have. You know, up until a little over a year ago, you know, it was really entirely up to the board to staff and manage fundraisers. So I have a fairly new person on staff, and so managing those two is part of our work, and then developing a fundraising plan for the full year is what we're doing at. I'm also having her look at grant writing because there are many organizations that support the work that we do, and also developing those resources as well.
Think about it. It looks like your environment, what you do, when you reach out, people respond.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent.
And thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Our next agency is Dunkirk, with Corey Larson and Linda Booker.
Like I should be different.
What's your name? I'm sorry.
I'm Corey Larson. I'm the Director of Community Relations at Glenkirk. Linda Berkowitz is our grants coordinator. She does all of our writing our grants. Over the past 64 years, it has been Glenkirk's mission to provide quality lifetime support and services which empower individuals with intellectual disabilities to participate fully in all areas of community life. Glenkirk provides an array of services in residential, day training, employment, home-based, clinical, therapies, and respite. Over the past year, we have launched a rebranding initiative, including a new logo and a new tagline. The tagline is Imagine, Explore, and Connect. Imagine your best life. What does it look like? These fundamental questions form the basis of everything Glenkirk does. If we were planning your services and support, how would you respond? I'm guessing something along the lines of, I want to do something fun, interesting, and meaningful. The Maine Township residents enjoyed summer fun at the winter water parks, catching a movie, Zumba, and a visit from Little Elvis. Something interesting. How about the Time and Glass Museum in Evanston, the Botanic Gardens, and the Garfield Conservatory? Meaningful. Volunteering at the Deerfield Food Pantry or going to the Create Arts Workshop. While having these amazing experiences, Glenkirk staff provides the therapeutic supports to foster strong, meaningful social connections. Explore. The resources, activities, and community around you. This is where we believe technology has a role to play. For people with disabilities, technology is an untapped resource in fostering community exploration and connection, bridging communication gaps, and supporting active lives and healthy choices. Did you know that 50% of the individuals that we serve have communication challenges? Technology helps our individuals write and send messages. Technology can translate ideas into pictures and symbols. Technology allows us to use voice commands and communicate to enable our individuals to connect. Glenkirk's Smart Home Initiative is a shining example of putting technology to work for people with disabilities. We brought our first smart home online in May, where we installed digital assistant in each room. There's a video doorbell and a smart TV. The centerpiece of the project is a smart refrigerator that has become the communications, activities, and the wellness hub. Connect is where it all comes together, helping individuals connect with and participate in their community, which is Glenkirk's highest and best purpose. Every element of Glenkirk's residential, day, employment, and clinical services is designed to foster meaningful connections which are aligned with the individual's interests. Glenkirk supports individuals' ability to connect with behavior and therapeutic supports. We've connected individuals with jobs. We went from 6 people that working in the community to 18 last year alone. How we measure this support is by the impact that we make in the lives of the people that we are honored to serve. Impact means inclusion, advocacy, access, respect, and opportunity. This definition of impact is why we care so deeply about maintaining beautiful homes for each of the Maine Township individuals who have chosen Glenkirk as their residential provider. Our main focus for these homes is to provide a variety of full life opportunities. Community integration is a vital part as a citizen of their community. Those living in our residential homes enjoy a variety of opportunities in the community. Some of their favorites were the White Sox games, Bulls games, and Wolves games. The individuals also enjoy their local special recreation programs where they are involved with bowling teams, tennis, softball, basketball, and dances. In addition, many of our homes get together and they go to movies, restaurants, shopping, music concerts, and swimming. Maine Township individuals also participated in several day service options. Glenkirk offers an in-house day service to Maine Township seniors at the Gulfview Developmental Center for 30 individuals who are unable to attend an outside program. Other day service sites offer paid work opportunities, teaching work habits and skills, educational components using technology, and community-based experience, such as going to Marriott Theater, museums, the Boomers baseball game, and the Lincoln Park Zoo. It is why we are so proud of our rapidly growing employment services program. Our social enterprise, Opportunities Secure Data Destruction, or OSDD, employs 14 people with disabilities in full-time positions. And is why we believe in supporting the whole person via our integrated medical care in our areas of podiatry, dental, vision, psychiatry, labs at our Glenkirk Clinic. Our Life Balance Department is made up of professionals that provide art, music, dance, therapies, along with individual and group counseling and behavioral supports. Last year, we provided nearly 12,000 hours of counseling and supports and over 3,100 medical appointments to the individuals in our care. Making such a big impact relies on the collective passion and commitment and the talent of the individuals, their families, and the staff. Together, they can truly accomplish anything. Maine Township residents also were involved in social opportunities, which were provided by Glenkirk. These events occur throughout the year. Our Valentine's Dance, Green Eggs and Ham, which is celebrated St. Patrick's Day, the Mother's Day Brunch, our Friends and Family Picnic, Halloween Dance, and the Holiday Brunch. Our partnership with Maine Township bridges the gap in the funding and the actual cost of programs and services. Thus, we are able to create opportunities for the individuals we serve. I'd like to thank you for the many, many years of support that you've given to the individuals that we serve at Glenkirk. Thank you. Is there any questions?
And I think we may ask you this every year, but with almost a $15 million budget, and I know you come here every year and we have a great relationship with you, and you ask only for $5,000, and I think we give between $2,000 and $3,000 every year, and we have some new members on the panel, but maybe you can explain why it looks like it doesn't make a dent in your budget, but why it's important, the couple $1,000s that we give you every year.
What we do is we designate it to the activities that I described, and for all of those Maine Township, whether they're in residential or day services, those are for enhancement activities. So all of, like going to the Marriott and all of those things that they wouldn't be able to because what the state gives us, we earmark that your dollars for those people from the Maine Township, and so they're able to be a part of the community. We actually are on expedited payments, so we get paid pretty much on time. The worst has been 30, 60 days, and that usually is at the end of the fiscal year, towards May, June. But we usually pretty good about that. You're welcome.
So you're part of the court case?
Yes, we are in the Ligas. Yeah, we are lucky to be Medicaid waiver, so we were in that class, yeah. Yeah, and it's also helped. I don't know if you read the news, but we also got some increases for our DSPs, which is our direct service professionals. Last year we got 75%. We got another 50%. 50 cents, 50%. Woo, that'd be good. 75 cents, and then we got another 50 cents. So it's helped with recruiting and retention. Yeah. Okay. Like I said, thanks again for all your support. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next agency is Open Communities with Kelly Thomas.
Good evening.
Hi.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's quite loud. Thank you for allowing me to present on behalf of Open Communities. As many of you may know, Open Communities is the housing agency that serves the north and northwest suburbs of Chicago. And we do three different things. We help homeowners avoid foreclosure. We help tenants deal with difficult landlords. And we protect everyone from housing discrimination. And those are the three core activities of Open Communities. We've been at it for 45 years. We were headquartered in Winnetka until just this past December. Since then, we've moved to Evanston, but throughout that time, we have served 17 communities, and Maine Township is right in the heart of our service area. People come to us because they get a notice that says that the bank is going to foreclose on their house, and when they try to call the bank, they can't find anybody who knows where the loan went or who owns the loan now. People come to us because they've complained to their landlord about the cockroaches in the kitchen, and in return, the landlord has said, "I'm going to evict you for complaining." And of course, people come to us because they experience discrimination based on race, ethnicity, religion, family status, that is having children, source of income, and a whole range of other. It's really kind of amazing the number of things people can think to discriminate about. We've learned over the years that when people come to us with landlord-tenant problems or when they come to us with foreclosure problems, sometimes those are pretexts for discrimination, but sometimes kept security deposit is just a kept security deposit. And for our clients who are overwhelmingly low income, if somebody keeps their security deposit, they will not be able to make a payment on a security deposit at a new residence. This year, after pursuing all of the things that we've always pursued, we've launched the Eviction Defense Legal Assistance Program. We have always been involved because we are a HUD-certified fair housing enforcer. We have always been involved with the courts, but this year we've had the good fortune to attract a general counsel and director of fair housing who is a brilliant attorney and unafraid to litigate cases that need litigating. She hired a director of, a coordinator of fair housing testing, which is what HUD pays us to do. We send people out to find out if Latino people get treated differently than white people, if people with children get treated differently from people without, and so on. Our fair housing testing coordinator is also an attorney, and our two housing counselors are law students. So given that embarrassment of riches, we decided to take on something that nobody else does, which is defending tenants in eviction court. Tenants lose overwhelmingly in eviction court, by which I mean more than 90% of the time, because they're not represented. And often they have no idea what's going on. Certainly if English is their second language, that's the case. And the average eviction case takes about 90 seconds. So if you don't know what's going on, you could blink and miss it. Eviction is more than a temporary inconvenience, and many of you know this. Once there's an eviction on your record, it never drops off. Bankruptcies drop off credit records before evictions do. And Illinois does not have an eviction expungement law. And so, of course, any landlord in his or her right mind is going to check to see if a prospective tenant has been evicted. The landlords have no way of knowing whether it was a good eviction or a bad eviction. It's just an eviction. And what it means is that people who have been evicted once will spend the rest of their lives trying to find decent places to live. This is a phenomenon that affects women with children disproportionately, and particularly African American women. In fact, 1 in 4 African American women will be evicted during her lifetime. So there's an entire population of people who struggle constantly for a place to live. The thing that Open Communities doesn't do is we're not a housing developer. So we can't contribute to the supply of affordable housing. We can't assist people necessarily in finding housing. What we can do is bend all of our efforts to keeping them in the housing that they have. And that's why we're so gung-ho in addressing foreclosure issues and doing workouts with banks and with mortgage servicers, and in trying to prevent eviction whenever that is possible. And again, in making sure that both landlords and realtors and homeowners who are selling understand that the fair housing laws oblige them to treat everybody who walks up to them in the same fashion. I could go on for decades because this is a real passion of mine. But rather than doing that, why don't I ask you what questions you may have based on our proposal?
Ellie, I'm curious, as a new organization, how did you hear about the funding at Maine Township?
We're not a new organization. I mean, we've gotten funding from Maine Township, not in the past 3 years, I think, but for most of the past 40 years. We were founded in 1972.
Under a different name before?
Yes, we were the Interfaith Housing Center of the North Shore. I'm so sorry, it didn't occur to me that the name change was an issue. Yes, we were founded as the Interfaith Housing Center of the North Shore, which reflected the fact that our primary sources of support at that time were congregations, churches, synagogues, and mosques that cared about the enforcement of the fair housing laws. Over the years, we expanded beyond fair housing to address housing counseling issues like the ones that I've described to you. But yes, we are not a new organization. We changed our name about 6 years ago, but we have been supported by Maine Township in the past on many occasions, and we're very grateful for that support.
Why haven't you applied in the last 3 or 4 years?
The last 3 or 4 years have been a time of major disruption at our agency. I mean, some of you may be familiar with this. We had the same executive director, Gail Schechter, for 22 years. And when she left about 3.5 years ago, the board of directors hired a gentleman named David Luna, who had a different vision for the agency than the one it had traditionally had. So in lieu of focusing on housing issues, he was very interested in doing broad spectrum social justice work. And so the agency started doing community organizing. It started working on issues having to do with immigrants. It started working on the minimum wage. And all of these are really, fine campaigns. But as it happens, Open Communities doesn't have any expertise in any of them. And so Mr. Luna's tenure as executive director was not a happy one, and he left the agency on February 28th of this year, and I started on March 19th. And so what I've spent the last, however long that is, 6 months, I guess, doing, is trying to pick up the threads of the relationships that we've had with township governments and town governments and city governments, as well as with the federal government, which is our overwhelmingly largest funder, and the state, and Cook County, and the Area Agency on Aging, which is known as Age Options. But essentially, we're starting from ground zero. Every single member of the staff has been there for less time than I have, and I've been there for 6 months. Because a number of people quit before I got there. A few other people quit right after I got there, which presumably means I should change my perfume. And unfortunately, I had to lay off a couple of people, partly because we were in terrible financial circumstances, and partly because we had an organizing and advocacy staff for which we had no funding, and the board did not wish to continue with organizing and advocacy. So we are now the proverbial lean, mean machine. There are 5 of us, including me, and we have a half-time data rapporteur who spends all of her time entering data for our government funders who want to know, how many blue-eyed people we took care of last week. And there we are at 5.5 FTE. We're hoping to expand, but this was an agency with a $1.2 million budget that now has a $595,000 budget because so many relationships were lost and neglected. I realize it's extremely unattractive for me to come here and trash my predecessor, but I did inherit an agency that didn't have enough money to make payroll. And the past 6 months have been devoted to restoring our financial stability.
Can I just real quick? I've been on this panel for 22 years, and the past name of your agency does not ring a bell that we funded. Would it be possible that you can email Christina and let her know the years that we funded you?
Sure, I'll be glad to do that.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And I also have a question. So you're asking for $44,000, and you're stating that we have 17 Maine Township residents that you serve. So you're asking for $2,400 per resident?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And can you just tell the panel again, the $2,400 per resident would do what?
It would enable us to do a complete housing counseling with each of those residents. And that might mean, sorry, I'm trying to get a pen so I can write down what you just told me to do so I don't forget it. Pardon me for 1 second. Previous funding. Got it. Because our staff consists of lawyers, and even nonprofit lawyers are fairly expensive, the process of doing a housing counseling, a complete housing counseling and credit reformation and workout and so on amounts to about $2,500 per client. And so it would make an enormous difference to us. I will also be completely frank. We have asked as many funders as we possibly could for as much as we possibly could because the agency has stabilized now. And of course, the minute it stabilizes, I get ambitious and I want to grow it. There is so much more demand for our services than our 2 lawyers and 2 law students can handle. And if I had the $40,000 that I asked you for, I would be able to hire another housing counselor. Now, I understand that, having a housing counselor is not the responsibility of Maine Township, but that's the basis on which we came up with it.
Thank you.
For the 17 clients that were served last year, do you have more specific information about what services that they received?
3/4 of our clients, I don't know specifically about the Maine Township people, although I have the numbers. 3/4 of our clients are in landlord-tenant disputes. Another 15% are in foreclosure or facing foreclosure or have already gone beyond foreclosure and are in real trouble. And the balance are housing discrimination cases. And housing discrimination arises in every single community we serve. I mean, there's just no exception. There's no Valhalla where people are prepared to deal with other people completely equally, and so the need for our services continues. When I think about the fact that we've been doing this for 45 years and we're still struggling with fair housing, part of me wants to shoot myself. On the other hand, it means that we're in a position to make a very serious impact. Yes, sir.
Show a budget of $595,000. You said that the staff disclosure, you show 2 lawyers and 2 law students.
Right.
And that would be yourself. That's the 5 that were on top.
Right, exactly. We don't have a development director, although we've budgeted to hire one in the coming year.
Now, at that $595,000 budget, your salary is $145,600 a year, right?
Right.
Okay. And then is it the two lawyers that are getting the $60,000 and the $50,000?
Yes.
And the 2 students are getting $44,000 each.
That's correct. One of the things I was listening to the people from Glenkirk talk about, getting additional money for their direct service providers. One of the things that the board and I believe very strongly is that the nonprofit sector is here to serve people and not create poor people. So we pay our people as well as we possibly can. Yes, ma'am.
Numbers, it says your salary is $113,000, not the $145. On the written card, it's $145.
It was
Budget, it's
right. I'm now on 3/4 time. That's three quarters of the 145.
But your annual salary is $145,
Yes, my annual salary is 145.
not $113. Okay.
How do people learn about your agency? Where do you promote the agency?
We make speeches any place anybody lets us come. We reach out to township and village officials to talk not only to supervisors but to staff and let them know what they can send to us and what we would like to send to them, because we encounter a lot of people who need social work and we do not have a social worker on staff. So there's a lot of referring back and forth. We hope to expand outreach in the coming year. Again, as soon as we have a development director, then I will be able to do more outreach and less grant writing. Anything else? Thank you all so much.
Hello, can you all hear me okay? Great. So I'm Allie Barnett, Director of Development at Zacharias Sexual Abuse Center, also known as Z Center. We were founded in 1983. We used to be called La Casa, so many of you may know that name. We had a name change about 8 to 10 years ago to Zacharias Center. Our mission is to provide a place where survivors of sexual assault and abuse can heal and to mobilize the community toward action to end sexual violence. We have 2 offices, one located in Gurnee and one in northern Cook County in Skokie. So we're the only rape crisis center within Lake County and northeastern Cook. And in our locations, our different services are prevention education, medical and court advocacy, and counseling and therapy. We see 35% children, all the way from the age of 1 or less, unfortunately, all the way to the age of 18, and then adults 19 to people in their 90s. We see men and women. Unfortunately, the statistics are very, very high. It's an underserved cause, but very prevalent. So 1 in 4 girls are abused before the age of 18, and 1 in 6 boys. 1 in 3 women on college campuses. And every 98 seconds, someone is sexually assaulted or abused in the United States. Every 8 minutes, it's a child. All of our services and programs are provided at no cost. So that's something that other rape crisis centers do not provide that. And so we're lucky in the sense that the majority of our funding comes from private foundations and individual donors. mentioned our medical advocacy. So that is when someone nearby not nearby, anywhere throughout Lake County, if someone calls, we have a 24/7 advocate that will go to the nearby hospital or ER, and they will be there as a resource. So that's to provide all the different avenues that if someone is raped and they go to the ER, what happens next? When a trauma like that happens, you're not prepared or necessarily know the next step. So someone is there to provide all the Zacharias Center services as well as community partners that we have and provide services if someone needs that. We're not a residence, but we partner with other centers throughout the community to provide that. So we're not allowed to tell them what to do, but we're able to provide information to them about possible next steps. Same thing with court advocacy. We're able to go, if someone chooses to go through the legal route, we can provide different services and resources. Some of them are our own, some of them are community partners. We have 29 staff members, some full-time, some part-time, and over 100 active volunteers. These volunteers are able to staff our 24/7 support line. Over the past couple years, we partnered with a translation service. So anytime in any language, we're able to staff that support line. And the rest of our services are bilingual. They're offered in English and Spanish. We also have prevention education. That's pre-K through college. And all of it is age-appropriate research-based. And basically through preschool, elementary school, they talk about bullying, power, and control. That's all that this issue really is. And then through middle school, they talk about more harassment, puberty, and then high school and college in more detail. And they ask, I get questions all the time about little ones, and parents don't want to even expose them to information around sexual abuse, sexual assault. And our answer is this happens at a very young age. It happens to everyone everywhere. The statistics are across race, socioeconomic status, everything. And so, this is something that the child needs to know and be educated on. There's specific ways to talk about it. But when you bring it down to their level and there's role play and different activities, they're very engaged, they want to participate, and they get it. And unfortunately, at every age, we get many disclosures. And I always provide an example. In a classroom, if there's a second grader, some of the activities that we have go around the room and say, what's your favorite color? And they may say blue, and the internal trainer that we have would say, no, it's green. What's your favorite food? And they may say pasta, and the trainer would say, no, it's pizza. And the child's learning, that's strange. That's something that I get to pick. That's more of that uh-oh feeling. I'm born with specific rights, and I get to make that decision. And so that's basically, at that young age, what we're trying to teach them. I think that's probably it for now, if anyone has questions.
You started out, you mentioned that your old neighbor was, did you say La Casa?
La Casa.
Now, were you affiliated with Northwest Casa?
So that's one of so I'm not sure if you know, but ICASA is Illinois Coalition Against Sexual Assault, and so that was one of the umbrella organizations throughout Illinois. So yes, we receive funding from ICASA.
So how would your services be different from them? Because we fund them and have for many years, and we don't duplicate services that we fund. So is there something unique to your services that Northwest Casa doesn't provide?
Yes, I'm not completely sure about Northwest Casa, what exactly they provide, but our big programs are provided at no cost at all. I'm not sure what Northwest Casa does, but we are particularly located in a geographical region that is just our own rape crisis center, and we have our, like I said, 24/7 support line, prevention ed, medical court advocacy, counseling, and therapy.
more clearly define your service area? Because in question 22, you just say northeastern Illinois. What does your service area consist of exactly?
Yeah, so like I said, we're in Lake County and northeastern Cook County.
But what suburbs do you serve in northeastern Cook County?
We're located in Skokie on Dempster, and I can get that information for you. But we take people from across the country. That's just where our service centers are located. We see people that are coming from out of town. We see over 1,000 people or survivors through counseling and therapy, and over 30,000 within the community. We educate students throughout Lake County, over 10,000 students. And I think maybe the difference between different rape crisis centers throughout the state is that we offer our services and are able to deliver our mission at a very high level. We have large numbers and we're able to consistently provide.
No approximate percentage-wise of how many clients or what percentage you serve in Lake County versus in Cook County?
I don't. I can find that out for you. I think, so Lake County is our biggest hub. That's where we provide all of our services at this point because of we're limited with capacity, funding, and staff. We provide counseling and therapy only within our Skokie office.
What kind of training do you do for your volunteers and others?
Yeah, good question. So all staff, volunteers, interns, everyone that works with us, they're required to go through a 40-hour rape crisis counseling mandated training. So we do that in-house. That's given about 3 or 4 times a year, and there's about 25 people in each.
Question. On your operating budget that you attached, under occupancy, under expenses, list occupancy at $226,907, but then you have less depreciation. Can you explain that expense item to me?
I can certainly look that up and get back to you about that.
Has your federal money remained about the same, or is that, so you're getting $350,000 from VOCA?
Yes, so it's varied throughout, the different years, but we're fortunate enough not to rely too much on government funding. So that's been relatively the same.
Is that the only federal, and then IDHS is?
Right, yeah. And ICAS is through state. I will mention also that different rape crisis centers throughout the state and throughout the country rely heavily on government funding, less than we do. And so unfortunately, staff has had to be cut and centers have had to close. And so we, as a limited capacity for some of our services, but we're able to take many of those survivors where their closer rape crisis center may not be available to them.
How did you hear about us?
So we started looking at different opportunities once we opened. Our Skokie site, I should mention, is only about 2 years old, and our Gurney location is over 20 years now. So we started researching different opportunities. We've never applied to Maine Township before.
Can you talk about the 39 clients that you have serviced last year?
Yeah, 36 last year, unduplicated.
So this is incorrect, the 39 that's on here?
Nope, the 39 is...
Looking at page 1.
Oh, that's unduplicated.
Number 9.
Okay, well, it's different than on the cover page then. It says 39.
Maybe
Yeah,
what's your
there's
fiscal
three.
year?
One's fiscal year and
Yeah.
one is the past 12 months.
Thank you, I was going to say that. So our fiscal year is July 1st to June 30th, and that's probably the difference. So obviously all of our services are confidential and anonymous and for specific reasons. We can ask clients, not required, but optional if they want to fill out information about themselves, where they live, that kind of thing. So we receive a lot of information through our forms, but not everything because it's not required. And, that those 39 or 36, whenever you look at it, will be through counseling, prevention, and advocacy work.
Okay, so for example, if somebody were to be assaulted and it was outside of, if it's here in Northwest area, CASA has exclusive agreements with the hospitals that are local here. So you couldn't be brought in that case because they are first and primary. So I'm assuming, do you have that same kind of relationship that Maine Township clients could possibly take advantage of if they got assaulted outside in Lake County or outside of Maine Township, and
yeah, so
relationships with hospitals and some of the police departments and such?
We do. So our medical advocacy, as I mentioned before, is just within Lake County, and we have specific partnerships that, we work very closely with those hospitals.
Okay.
So, like I said before, in Skokie, we have limited capacity right now because of funding. We just do counseling and therapy there.
So I guess what I'm asking is, are your Maine Township clients serviced, could they be serviced outside of Maine Township in Lake County if they got...
Yes, exactly.
It's hard to know where...
It is hard to know, yeah.
Fundraising efforts that really appear to be pretty effective. At the October 2017 Taste of Town Fall Gala raised $252,000 at a cost of $53,000. Is that an annual thing, or is that something you do every year?
Yes, so that's an annual event. Last year, I was able to heighten the quality and make that more of a major donor event. We actually have our November 6th, fourth annual Taste of the Town Gala coming up.
And the Race to Zero 5K that was in April, do you do that every year?
Yes, those are three.
They're all every year.
Yep, those are three of our major events, and they're annual.
What other events do you have that just popping off, that would you pop off the top, above and beyond the three? It's
Can I answer that? So we have very minor events, different partnerships, things that we do. We'll partner, we call it third-party vendor events. And so they'll come and offer a percentage to us if they sell their merchandise. So we've done shopping around Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, different things like that.
That's really commendable.
Thank you.
Profitron.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next agency are Avenues to Independence, and it's Bob Kuzaki and Kathy McCarthy.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Kathy McCarthy, and I'm the Director of Finance at Avenues to Independence, and I've been there for 6 years. And this is Robert Okazaki.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to present before the Township Board. I know you said no audio-visual, but this is really old-fashioned, so I would call this like a grade school. But we've celebrated 65 years providing support services in the community, and we had a celebration earlier in the summer where we honored the founder. And it was his daughter who came. Founder passed away a few years ago, but he was a postman in Park Ridge who had a daughter with Down syndrome, and on his daily rounds in the 50s would go out through the neighborhood and find other kids at home not going to school like his daughter because the school system did not provide for special education in that era. And he took it upon himself, along with a few other families, to start what was the Park Ridge Aid for Retarded Children in the basement of the Park Ridge Methodist Church, and later the Community Church, and VFW Hall, where we became Northwest Suburban Aid for the Retarded. For various reasons, the use of the moniker retarded has gone out of favor, and in, 1997, we changed our name to Avenues to Independence. And today we provide support services for 200 individuals in a wide variety of residential, day program, employment, and home-based types of settings. The majority of funding does come from the state of Illinois, which is somewhat problematic because the state is ranked 47th in terms of its support of programs like ours. There was a budget impasse a couple years ago that didn't help matters. We ended up surviving because of a lawsuit that had been filed a few years earlier that required the state to continue funding disability programs like ours. But certainly social services throughout the state of Illinois did take a hit. About 7 or 8 years ago, the state had eliminated grant funding for 24 of our residential people, and those people are still in our programs. Thanks to the fundraising, the generosity of the township here and the community at large that continues to support our program, not only today, but frankly for the past 65 years. We're very fortunate to have the level of support that we have in the community, and if you take a look at our annual report, our newsletters, our website, you'll see the level of community support, your friends and neighbors who are board members, donors, and volunteers for the services that we have.
And really, the only thing that I wanted to add was that during my 6 years of involvement with Avenues to Independence, the line item that we always see decrease is our state funding. And it's amazing to have the support of our community and the township, as Bob has mentioned, because that's what really provides the services to our individuals. They don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They're just so happy to live their day-to-day lives. And if we can help them achieve that, then we're meeting our goals. So,
just a question about the new group home that you opened in Park Ridge this year.
yes, we were very fortunate to have a home donated to us on the west side of town, and we're in the process of getting it approved by the state. So we'll be able to move about 5 new individuals into it. Yeah, we're very...
I think it's important to let people know that we were kind of born and raised in Maine Township, Park Ridge, Des Plaines area. So when the organization started, I believe the area was much more fertile. You can't quote me on that, but people tell me that it certainly was. And we established our first residential program in 1975 and kind of been adding over the years. But recently, in order to be good stewards of our fundraising dollar, we've realized that we can't afford to buy houses in Park Ridge. I mean, you can go to some neighboring suburbs and almost get a 2-for-1 value for our fundraising dollar. And so when Kathy talks about someone donating a house, that frankly is the only way that we can continue to acquire and grow programs here, because if it was strictly our own ability to fundraise, we would be looking more in other local suburbs to expand the programs just because of the cost. Now, because we are a Park Ridge-based, Des Plaines-based organization, this is where the majority of our people come from, where they live, and it's important for us to take advantage of resources like this when they come to us. And I think it's only because of the generosity of the community and the fact that we've been here for 65 years that opportunities like this do come around. In fact, the last 2 group home acquisitions we had in the area were an outright contribution, as Kathy mentioned, and a partial gift from a family whose son we had supported in our day programs for quite a few years. Mom passed away. The executive estate really felt that they could provide residential support for the son without Avenues intervening. After a couple of years, they had realized that there was a lot more work. And so they passed on the house to us at a very good rate. And we turned that into a group home for 5 gentlemen now, and actually 3 gentlemen and 2 ladies in Park Ridge who are really enjoying the fact that they can have a group home in a community that they are used to, that they really valued, and it's something that I think because of the generosity of community is the only way that things like that can keep going.
And it's the same with the second home that we just acquired. 2 sisters that lived in Park Ridge built the home, became to know Avenues through our newsletter, and would donate $10 every couple of months. And they were in their foundation that they started, donated the home to Avenues. So we're very fortunate.
It's taking a little while to get the home up and running because we are heavily regulated by the state. The state unfortunately does not have enough staff to send out to get the homes up and running as quickly as it can. And frankly, sometimes it's a money-saving tactic on the state's part because the longer it takes them to fund a new home, the more they technically save in their budget. There was an issue earlier this year when their Medicaid enrollment system, their brand new computerized enrollment system didn't work correctly. And you might have seen that with your general assistants here. There were people that were losing their food stamps, they were losing their Medicaid eligibilities, and the same thing happened for our people. And during that interim period, we had to finance all of our people's groceries to make sure they still got their medical care. It took the state the better part of 6 months to fix all that. During that time, we couldn't bill because if they're not enrolled in the system, the state doesn't recognize that billing. So it's kind of this insidious way to save some money. And if you're not a well-established organization, it could be somewhat problematic. And we're fortunate because of the longevity support and the local community here in the township that we're able to weather that and hopefully catch up with the billing. You hate to always put it in terms of the billing, but that's the way the state makes you work now. And without the local support here, I think it would even be more difficult for organizations like ours to do what we need to do for our people.
Mailings twice a year? So the annual mailings, I remember talking about this last year, so because you did very well, your net cost $12,000 and you netted $263,000 cost.
It's
Both mailings, right?
It's testimony to the community. I mean, I have to tell you that 20 years ago, we'd do the mailing and get $12,000 back. And so it was a matter of building that up over time and showing people that we do provide a good quality service, and it's something that people feel is important. And hopefully after 65 years, they realize the organization is doing a good thing in town. Well, it's a double-edged sword because when I first started doing this a long time ago, we were close to 90% state funded. Now our budget is around 50%. And that tells you the decline in state funding. Illinois has kind of fallen from the mid-30s in terms of its ranking for funding programs like this to 47th. And I don't think anybody in the room feels that Illinois is ever going to be in position to fund these programs at the level where they should. And so it's incumbent upon organizations like ours to do the best we can. And because of the area that we happen to be offering our programs, there is a level of affluence that can help support these programs. But you see this in the township too. You have some areas of poverty too, and it balances out to the point where you try and do the best you can to make ends meet for everybody who needs our services. Just going forward, we're in the process of updating our day program. It was an old-fashioned, what used to be termed sheltered workshop, where people would go and make less than minimum wage to do packaging assembly jobs. The idea of that kind of programming is pretty outdated now, and so we have embarked on an endeavor to modernize that program, to eventually eliminate the sub-minimum wage services that are provided there. People who will do the work will be paid at a standard minimum wage at some point in the future, but the majority of the individuals who can't work at a production norm that would make that feasible, we'll be engaging in a lot of different activities. And it also goes along with the fact that our population is aging. Younger individuals, as they graduate out of special ed, are going right to employment. We're lucky with the employment situation being the way it is, that more people are having an opportunity to get a job. But for those older folks and people who've been in our program for quite some time, we're looking at transitioning to either senior day and other kinds of activities and community types of outings that are more suited for individuals who are older and essentially don't have the same skill sets as the younger generation that's coming on board. You asked about the thrift store. We've had a thrift store on Tui Avenue near Overhill. It's like 3 feet inside the Chicago city limits, so we can technically lay claim to a Chicago program. That store has been in operation since 1977. Was originally operated by 3 ladies who had sons and daughters in our programs, and over the years has migrated to a regular Avenue staff and volunteers running it. We actually operate it as a pseudo-day program. So you have individuals from our residences here going there, working, getting paid, or engaging in other activities during the day. We have a person who sews and creates pillows that they sell at the thrift store, and another person who creates gift cards. It's kind of a micro business, and it's funny because my wife makes me go to all these craft shows and whatnot this time of year. And I asked the proprietors, I asked the people there, do you think you're making minimum wage? And the guy's making pottery and everything. I said, there's no way. There's no way he's making minimum wage, but he's doing something that he likes. And it's the same concept for our people, is that they're probably not going to make a true living at this, but the fact they can do something they enjoy, sell it, and see the fruits of their labor is really just an invaluable experience for them. So that's what we offer, not only in the thrift shop, but the day program and some of the other ancillary programs, arts and crafts that we offer during the year. Is it a huge moneymaker? No, but it does pay for itself, and it offers opportunities for people with disabilities to do productive things, and for us to essentially be a part of the Human Needs Task Force. I mean, if people are in need in the township, they can come here through the general assistance, get a little voucher, and we supported people with clothing and other household items that they need. So it's a way to kind of give back to the community, and it's a direct result of the fact that we've been around for a long time and people are supportive of what we do, and that the ability for our people to give back, I think, is just truly important. The last thing I'll leave you with before questions is we're also working with Christina, and we've worked with the township and the Student Government Day for probably 20 years now, where the kids can come out and see firsthand the value of township government, what we do, and the fact that the importance of what takes place here, it just can't be overlooked. I mean, your newspaper's always chasing after other things, but this is something that really impacts the lives of people, certainly with disabilities at Avenues and the other folks that you're hearing from. And this won't get any publicity at all. And to the extent that this is one of the most important things, because we don't get any other local government support, it's the township. And the fact that you're here listening to what we have to say and making a decision on our funding is truly important, and it's something that needs to be publicized more and more. So thank you very much. Thank you. Is that all? I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lowell Raven, and I'm the CFO for Turning Point, and I'll be highlighting some financial information associated with our application. Noy Friel Lopez is our Chief Clinical Officer, and he'll be talking about the programs that the Maine Township grant will support. Why is your funding important? Great question. I'm glad that you asked it. Because the work that Turning Point does saves lives, both directly and indirectly, as we provide solid support to thousands of clients when they need it the most, as we provide expert, affordable, compassionate care to people during some of their most difficult times in their lives. Turning Point is entering our 50th year anniversary, and we've been serving children and adults since 1969. There are some very exciting activities going on at our agency, including partnering with Heartland Health Center and building a fully integrated health center at our facility so that both behavioral health care services and primary care services will be delivered under one roof. The clinic is expected to open at the beginning of next year, serving not only our clients, but the community at large. The funding we seek from Maine Township is $50,000, which is an increase in our current funding of $47,200, for which we are incredibly grateful. The revenue that Turning Point receives through our billing process does not cover the full cost of services. Therefore, it is essential that we receive support to bridge the gap so that individuals and families in need of care, including those who are unable to pay, have access to support and services they require. For the fiscal year 19 budget included in our application, you'll see that Turning Point is a $4 million agency, and the known funding sources of revenue are much less certain than the known budgeted expenses. For example, almost 20% of our revenue is from 4 Department of Mental Health grants, whereas almost 67% of our revenue is projected to be from fee-for-service. However, there's less revenue certainty in the insurance billing due to the nature of the billing process, also due to the nature of the payers who are the insurance plans accepted by Turning Point, and the timing of the payments from these insurance plans, because many times they're 2 and 3 months behind. The balance of the revenue stream reflected in the budget, including the application, is from townships, fundraising events, other grants, reimbursements from residential clients, rental income, investment income, and a small amount from other sources. Conversely, our expenses are certain, and we must proactively seek out funding from townships, such as Maine Township, in order to cover potential funding gaps if any of the budgeted revenue from the fee-for-service does not come to fruition as we project. You'll see that in the application, we have broken out various amounts in Appendixes 1, 2, and 3 for the DMH grant revenue, fundraising and event revenue, and also in other grant revenue. You'll also see in the application that we reflect other income of about $133,000, as well as a budgeted surplus of $115,000. However, included in other income of $100,000 is investment income, and because of the nature of the stock market, there is less certainty in the agency's ability to derive that revenue. Despite these revenue uncertainties, Turning Point is very strong, and a very strong and viable agency that looks forward to serving our clients for many years to come with the support of Maine Township. Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks again for the opportunity to share some of our work with you at Turning Point. As Lowell mentioned, with your support, we'll be able to continue a lot of the services and programs that we have now, including outpatient services, which is available for folks from the age of 5 on up. We offer individual counseling, family counseling, couples, and groups. We have a pretty robust psychosocial rehab program, which is our groups program, which runs Monday through Friday from 9 till about 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And during each hour, there could be 1 up to 4 groups running at the same time. Groups can be skills-based, where folks are learning how to budget or cook, to more process-oriented groups where folks are processing things like trauma. And then community integration groups where folks are actually out in the community learning how to be independent. We also have a case management team to help folks with benefits. And right now, as you've heard from other agencies, I'm sure that's a difficult time for us, as well as linking in the resources like medications and physicians and dentists and that sort of thing. The same team works with our residential program. We have a transitional program where folks can stay with us on average of 3 years until they meet independent living skills in terms of in those goals. Due to the lack of average of 3 years. Yeah, with the lack of affordable housing, most folks stay a bit longer than that. During that time with us, they take advantage of all the services that we offer, including the groups, case management therapy, and so on. We have a crisis team that's available to anyone, Turning Point or non-Turning Point clients. That's 24 hours a day. So folks will call in, someone will respond within 20 minutes to help them manage whatever crisis they identify. And usually we come up with some sort of safety plan for the evening or help them with hospitalization. In addition to that, under the crisis umbrella, we have the living room, which is a respite program for adults in a psychiatric crisis. Folks who have come as guests have shared some of the negative experiences they've had in ERs. Sometimes it takes hours for them to be seen, so they would come to the living room instead. And what's unique about that program is we have recovery support specialists, folks who have lived experience with mental illness to support and work on the crisis in the moment. And usually we have a 99% success rate, so folks are deflected from the ER. We also offer psychiatry. Right now it's just for our adult clients. We had psych for CNA kids at one time, but we lost that funding as well. We have partnerships with schools, so we are a training site for a number of schools with students who are working on their master's degrees in counseling or social work or clinical psych. We also have a small contract with the U.S. Probation Office to do individual therapy and substance abuse counseling for folks who are either getting ready for a trial or coming back into the community. And as Lowell mentioned, we have the health clinic that's supposed to be coming up and opening within the next few months. So we're very excited about that. And what's unique about this clinic, it's with the Heartland Health Centers. The clinics that they have at Thresholds and Trilogy are specifically only for those clients, but our clinic will be open to the community, so residents of Maine Township can take advantage of that as well. We have a number of partnerships with organizations who are also on site with us to offer services that we are not licensed to do. Impact Behavioral Health Partners has an independent or individual placement services employment program. So folks are able to seek employment through our partnership with them. And most recently, we're partnering with Abnagar, which is a gender violence agency. We are starting a new group for dads, a little unique to a DV agency, where we're helping dads sort of begin to understand how their emotions affect their relationship with their kids. Get back to Lowell or answer questions you'll have.
Very good.
Yeah, lots of changes this year.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Is it about the same number of clients that you serviced last year as this year, 123 in Maine Township? Is that about right, Richard? Are we pretty much in sync?
Last year, it was 156.
And what degree of overlap do we have with Turning Point, what we do here with our own service?
General Assistance uses Turning Point for drug and alcohol evaluations, and when their clients are applying for general assistance. I mean, you guys can probably speak more to the depth of that than I can, but they have a close working relationship with the GA department.
We'll do the assessments for the referred clients and do the drug testing, and then if needed, they engage in the services that we just spoke of.
So we don't do any of our own assessments, we direct that to Turning Point?
We do, yes.
Okay. And then as far as
Typically
psychiatric?
Drug and alcohol.
Sure, drug and alcohol. And then as far as psychiatric services, at what point do we use our own versus direct out to Turning Point?
Currently, since we have reached capacity, Turning Point is one of the organizations that we are referring to for adult psychiatric services, and we have in the past. One question related to that. I knew what it was last year, but what is the current wait time to see a psychiatrist there for adults?
The last I checked was probably a week ago, about 30 days.
Is that on average about 30 days?
Correct.
Weren't you implementing a new system when you came last year?
Yeah, open access. Yeah, that's still in place, and it's been useful, so folks can still come in during open access hours and meet with a therapist to start the assessment and treatment planning. We ask that they work with the therapist for at least 30 days before they're referred to a psychiatrist. And at that point, they are set up an appointment.
We typically refer clients to Turning Point if they need a higher level of care or different services that we don't provide here.
What did you say? I'm sorry. High level care?
A higher level of care or more intensive services or treatment or groups that we don't offer. We do use them very frequently as a referral source.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was her daughter.
Hi, good evening. Sorry, ready? Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Liz Novak. I'm the Associate Director of Development at Connections for the Homeless. Let me first just extend my thanks to each of you for considering our request for support. This is our first time applying for Maine Township funding, so I was hoping to sort of walk through our history, programs and services, give you an idea of what we do, and then open it up for questions at the end. So 34 years ago, Connections was founded by a scrappy group of rebellious religious leaders and community activists in Evanston, really responding in the 80s to sort of a crisis. In the 80s, as you might recall, there was a bunch of neighborhoods sort of being displaced as a result of closing of public mental health institutions, the disinvestment in public housing, and sort of the battle against welfare reform. So at that time, this group founded a shelter, Hilda's Place, that you might have heard of, which still exists today, and it's still in the same location. So it's in Evanston, in the basement of the Lake Street Church. Today, we're now providing services to more than 1,100 individuals each year, over 250 of which are children. And although we primarily serve the townships of Maine, New Trier, Niles, Northfield, and the city of Evanston, our programs and services are open to anyone seeking them, regardless of where they're from. And I will say, there's no program that we charge for. That doesn't exist in our world. So our mission is very simple. We serve and catalyze our community to end homelessness one person at a time. And we do this through three primary programs. We have a homelessness prevention program, shelter, and housing. So the application we submitted to you all was in support of these three programs, which is where we're serving Maine Township residents. So our homelessness prevention program, last year we served 150 families and helped them avoid the trauma and costs of an eviction. Our homeless prevention program provides direct interventions for families on the brink of losing their home. People come to us typically after a pretty dramatic change in finances. Divorce, job loss, medical emergency, things of that nature, and it significantly impacts their ability to pay for rent or a mortgage. So for roughly about $2,000 per household, we're keeping that whole family in that apartment, in that house, letting them stay in their community, keeping their kids in their school. And so the majority of Maine Township residents we're serving is through this program. And just last year, we expanded it. So like many of the other folks coming here today, this program was funded by the state of Illinois. And there's a lot of eligibility requirements with it that make it tricky for some families to fit it, and therefore they fall through the cracks and end up becoming homeless. So we launched a private homelessness prevention fund. It's supported by private donors, and it gives us that flexibility when someone comes to us and says, you know, I actually need like $3,500 to pay my mortgage from the last 3 months so my 4 kids can stay in my home because my husband just lost his job. I just had a major medical procedure. And so that allows us, it gives us that flexibility to say, okay, we'll give you that financial support, and the whole family's back on their feet and sort of getting themselves back under themselves and paying for those other bills while not worrying that they're about to lose their home. So that's our homelessness prevention program. Our second program area is our shelter, and this includes both an overnight shelter for men, and then during the day we open up that same space for drop-in services. So our shelter, Hilda's Place, serves up to 18 men at a time, and this shelter is regularly at capacity. There's almost always consistently a wait list for that. And so when I say the space opens up during the day for drop-in, this is for adults who are temporarily or chronically homeless, where they can access an on-site health clinic, mental health services, case management, showers, laundry, a food pantry, a clothing closet, and storage lockers all in one place. And so often, as you would imagine, that's the feeder to our shelter. We have folks coming into the drop-in services, and then when an opening becomes available, they move into the shelter. Of course, that doesn't address women who are homeless, and that doesn't address families who are homeless. Our shelter cannot serve either of those currently. So we just expanded our drop-in services as well. These used to only be open 2 days per week, and now they're open 5. As you can imagine, this has been transformational. We're seeing on average 45 to 50 people a day accessing those drop-in services, coming from previously about 20 a day. So it's a huge spike, and it's clearly because there's a need. And then finally, we operate housing programs. So we've got some transitional housing programs specifically for young men ages 18 to 24, and then a transitional housing program for families, and then long-term permanent supportive housing for both individuals and families. And really we're providing everything the family and individuals could need, both big and little, from the prom dress for the girl who just wants to go to prom and her mom can't afford to get her one, to helping pay the rent. And so all the work I just described is really made possible because of our community. We have on average about 1,300 annual volunteers that support our work. So this ranges from things like, every night of the year there's someone cooking at our shelter, serving the meal and enjoying it with our residents, to more tangible things like organizing donation drives, organizing a food pantry drive, things of that nature. So really, we're doing a lot in our community, but it's thanks to the support of our community. And I was hoping to hit this home, and what I think really highlights our impact is I wanted to share a story. And so of course, for the sake of confidentiality, identifying details have been changed. But this was a Maine Township resident that we served last year. Sandra came to Connections in a crisis. For many years, she was gainfully employed as a mail carrier and able to provide for her and her children. Then she had to take time out of work for a planned surgery and recovery. Prior to her leave, she was promised a light-duty position upon her return. However, when Sandra was ready to come back to work, she was informed that she was being let go. Without an income and with exorbitantly high medical expenses, she quickly fell behind on rent. She heard about our short-term rental assistance and was referred to Connections. Sandra was quickly connected to our prevention specialist, and we were able to provide critical financial assistance to help her and her children avoid an eviction and the trauma that comes with being homeless. Sandra has since re-secured full-time employment. She's keeping her family in their home, their kids are in their school, and she's back on her feet. So to kind of wrap it up, when people ask us why someone is homeless or near homeless, it's not a clear-cut answer, and each person obviously has their own complicated story. But the common thread that we see is that there's a universal basic lack of a support system. So when you're living near, at, or below the poverty line, or even for the family I just talked about, twice the poverty limit, your life is complex, it's stressful, and you need the support of someone, you need a community. And this is really the work that Connections does, where everyone has access to the most basic resources so they can live here. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
I had a few questions.
Yeah.
As a new organization, I'm curious how you heard about the funding opportunities here at Maine Township, and then also if you have any additional information about the 74 Maine Township clients who were served last year, which services they received.
Sure. So I think in terms of funding for us, we are in the midst of a big transition. We went through the state budget fiasco we basically were at the brink of closing. And so coming out of that, we've been very focused on we need to diversify our funding, we need to look everywhere for funding, and we know some of our partners, as you heard earlier, are coming here too. So given the percentage of folks that we're serving, it sort of seemed like a natural fit. And we're expecting, as we build the awareness for our programs, because they're not geographically restricted for the most part, except for these state funding, the state of Illinois funding, that more people will be coming. We're not, to someone else's, I think it was Turning Point's point, affordable housing is at crisis level. So there's going to be more people that are going to be falling behind on rent, mortgage payments, and coming to us and saying, we need help. So we anticipate, and what we're seeing is that trend will continue on the upward. In terms of your second question, can you remind me again what that was?
Just elaborating more on the 70
sure.
grants and what services they receive.
So the bulk of them are homelessness prevention, so I would say that was about 50%. We have a significant number coming to our drop-in program, so that's the daytime services for people who are chronically or temporarily homeless, just getting their basic needs met. We've had folks come in and out of our shelter. I know right now we have a family that was a Maine Township resident that's now living in permanent housing in the city of Evanston. I think what's tricky for us is when you ask someone who is homeless, where are you from? That today could be something very different than it was 10 days ago. So they might have last lived in Des Plaines, but now they're living on the streets in Evanston and coming to our drop-in center because that's where they can go every day without the shame and judgment of sort of living on the street, and they've got a safe space. So it is something we know as an agency we sort of struggle with documenting because that definition is really different for folks, even if you ask the same question the same way.
What convention do you use then for determining?
We do ask the question. So for homeless prevention, it's pretty easy because they give us the address, and wherever they're living, we're paying that landlord or that mortgage company to that specific address. For a homeless situation, it's typically the last known permanent address that they had. Now, the couch surfing situation is when it gets tricky, particularly for families, and that's it's rare that you see a chronically homeless or a family living on the street. They're more likely than not finding some place here and there to sleep at night, but still homeless. Yeah.
You said about 50% is drop-in of the 74?
Sorry, homelessness prevention. And then it's sort of piecemeal in terms of all the other programs as to where they're accessing. Yeah, so whether that's drop-in or the shelter or the housing programs.
Elaborate on the fundraising effort. I think you said it's called Thrive in here.
Yeah.
$500,000.
Yep.
Very impressive.
Yeah, that's our annual, sure, it's our annual gala event. It's in February each year. And we have, it's significantly grown in the last 2 years. We've got a really strong board, a really strong host committee, and they are very gung-ho. They have good connections to corporations that have helped support it. And then our community is incredibly philanthropic, and so that also helps, and it goes a long way. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Find the similar services for women and children.
So there are some options. So for instance, Journeys Pads, which operates in Palatine, but they're a seasonal shelter, so they open and then they close and they open and it changes every night where you go. And then there's some domestic violence specific. I think, so part of it, we're in the midst of a strategic plan and we're exploring adding both shelter for families and shelter for women. We're not there yet. We have a lot of work we've got to do before we can expand, but what we struggle with is typically when we get women and families, if it's not a domestic violence situation, they end up having to go into the city of Chicago. And the options are very limited, and most folks that are living in North Suburban Cook County don't want to hear, sorry, you have to go to Chicago. That's the only option right now. Especially for families, you're completely uprooting them and putting them in a community that is not theirs. So, yeah. Thank you.
Now we will see the agency that will be presenting its lifespan. Denise Wayne.
Denise Wolf-Markham. I'm the Executive Director of Lifespan. Our suburban office is located in Des Plaines. We are happy to celebrate our 40th anniversary this year. It's a huge milestone for us. Next month I'll be celebrating my 25th anniversary at Lifespan, and I'm grateful, and I'm happy to acknowledge and very thankful for the support of Maine Township since 1984. And so you've been an integral part of what we can do, who we are, who we serve, and we can't serve victims of domestic violence and their kids without community support and understanding, and that's what you provide us. So last year, we served 5,400 people in Cook County. We have an office downtown. But 2 years ago, we were able to significantly expand our Des Plaines office and added several staff, and that's made a big difference to how we can respond to domestic violence and sexual assault in the Maine Township area. We have 3 basic services for clients. They're counseling for adults and children, criminal court advocacy in the Skokie Courthouse, and legal services, which provide victims of domestic violence with protective orders, but more importantly, with family law remedies, which allow victims to gain a permanent solution to the violence in their lives by ending their marriage, getting child support, getting back on their feet financially. And we also provide immigration services, and that's the biggest service we've added to our Des Plaines office, which most Maine Township residents go to. In our Des Plaines office, we have 6 counselors. Our diversity includes the language abilities of a Polish speaker and Spanish speakers. All of our language diversity comes from immigrants, so not only do they understand the culture and the language, they also understand the immigrant experience, which is really helpful. It builds trust, it builds understanding way quicker than a service provider who didn't have those qualities. We have 3 lawyers there now, 2 family law lawyers. One is a Spanish speaker. Another family law lawyer, I'm very proud to say, is a Korean-American young woman just past the bar. And she speaks, obviously, Korean, and that really helps our collaboration with Can Win, which is located in Park Ridge. Can Win is an agency that provides many supportive services for victims of domestic violence who are Korean. It's a very difficult population to serve because there's so many barriers to service for victims. Not to mention the small and insular nature of that community. They can't be anonymous, so it's very hard to help them because we can't. Guaranteeing safety isn't really it. It's the likelihood you'll remain safe is what we try to convince our clients that we can ensure the likelihood. But with Korean families, we can't even do that because of the way that group is structured in our community. So very happy to have a Korean-speaking lawyer who can relate to them. And then we have an immigration lawyer who speaks Spanish and Telugu, which is a South Asian language. She's from Pakistan. And then we have added 2 years ago an criminal court advocate that's dedicated to the Skokie Courthouse, and she provides support and information and advocacy service for victims who are pressing criminal charges in that courthouse. All of our services are free. We have many collaborations. I just mentioned Can Win. This is just examples of what we do. We really try to have partnerships in the community which strengthens our work and their work and helps us meet the needs of victims. So we have a collaboration with Lutheran General Hospital, the State's Attorney's Office, and the Skokie Courthouse. And we try to do as much public education as we can.
it's been interesting to me how difficult it's been to get into the Maine Township high schools. It's really hard, and I don't understand why. There's just a sort of a, no, we don't need or want you kind of thing. Having said that, we are providing a presentation to parents at Maine South on October 25th. One of our counselors is going there. Our senior counselor who specializes in going to schools and talking to kids in groups. Usually it's a presentation in health or gym or some other required course where we can go there for the day and present in every period of the school and then hit as many kids, that's a bad word, connect with as many kids as we possibly can. We're having a public information and education event at Lutheran General on October 11th. So our budget is now $3.2 million. When I came to Lifespan in 1993, our budget was $750,000, and we had 12 employees. We now have 38. And so we've managed a steady growth, an expansion of our services, and a development of innovative programming that we're really proud of. Our fundraising in the private sector hasn't been so wonderful, and it's been an area of constant struggle for our agency to develop a better development program. We had a gala for our 40th anniversary last month. We think we made about $50,000. That's the most we've ever made in that kind of a funding effort. And so I feel like we're finally making some headway. And so with that, I'll try to answer any questions that you have.
That was a nice success.
Thank you. Yeah.
Lisa, are all of your attorneys, or most of them, if I recall correctly, full-time?
They're all full-time.
They're all full-time.
And all of our services are free. Sometimes people have to pay a fee. In particular, immigration fees can be very, very expensive. So I'm trying to develop a fund with a private donation, either individual donations or, we haven't written a grant for this yet, but I'd like to develop a little pot of money that we can pay some of these $1,000 fees for people to file their immigration case.
I know you mentioned the 3 attorneys that you have, and then I had been looking, I don't know, maybe it's just the legal services, 12 attorneys that you referenced, is that?
The rest of them are down in our downtown office, and we do serve township residents who prefer to come downtown, and some do, come downtown to the Daily Center, but we try to meet the need in the community by offering these services in the Skokie Courthouse. So we have another office in Chicago in the Loop that has counseling and advocacy and legal services, same designed for services that we have here in Des Plaines.
Is there an effort to try to increase your private fundraising at any events?
Yes. And so this was our first time with our new team of development people. So I think it's a huge success for us because we've been so, for lack of a better word, not bad. We haven't been very good at raising money in that kind of a way. And so I think we are on that track and I'm really happy about it. Again, thank you so much for your support and for listening and for the fact that I thought I was supposed to be here at 8:30 when I was really supposed to be here at 8:15. So thanks again. I appreciate your flexibility.
Our next agency is Elementary Learning Foundation, otherwise known as ELF. We have Kevin Dwyer and Aaron Raven.
Last but not least, probably, right?
Yes, right.
So we are members of the Park Ridge and Niles School District 64 Elementary Learning Foundation, and we're here to seek approval for our grant application. This is the first time that ELF has applied for the Maine Township grant, so it would probably be helpful to share with you a little bit about our mission and our vision. We were established in 1994, so we're going on our 24th year, and we serve the Park Ridge and Niles community of School District 64. Our school district foundation plays a critical role in helping serve the students, faculty, and families within District 64. And District 64 now serves over 4,500 students. Our all-volunteer board is composed of District 64 parents, teachers, and administrators. We're 100% funded by donations from individual community members and local businesses. We do not receive any outside money to support our efforts towards innovative grants. And since we rely completely on individual community members and businesses, we compete with every other nonprofit in town, shaking their tin cans looking for money. So the Maine Township grant money would be vital to our continued success for innovative programs in our community. With ELF, there's no overhead. All funds collected go directly towards our projects going to the school because we are 100% volunteers. Dr. Dwyer here is a volunteer as well. He's a principal at one of the schools, but he's here as a volunteer, as am every trustee is a volunteer. And I want to turn it over to Dr. Dwyer.
Sure. I'm Dr. Kevin Dwyer, principal at Roosevelt Elementary School in Park Ridge, District 64. And like many government agencies, our school district is committed to living within our means. Given this commitment to fiscal responsibility, it's imperative that our school district seed worthwhile new projects and innovative ideas through a resource of funds beyond our own tax base. And this is where ELF fits in. Our mission is simply to raise money and give it away through grants. ELF helps expand and enrich the educational opportunities for all learners across all grade levels by funding grants to District 64 teachers and their schools for innovative and imaginative programs and projects. ELF grants are competitive and involve a selective process. Only about 1 in 5 grants are awarded based on available grant monies. Over the years, ELF funded grants to support a variety of categories. There's no limits to this. We funded grants to help out in the areas of technology, celebrating the arts, social emotional development, fitness, health, nutrition, reading, math, science, special education, community service, and parent education. To highlight just a few of the grants that we've been funding over the last few years, we support families by hosting a Greg Tang Math Night, workshops during the day for students, and family night with parents and students working together on STEAM education. I'll have another brief example of that in a moment. We foster partnerships with other school districts and community members. We hosted a showing of the movie Race to Nowhere, and after the movie, parents, educators, community members talked about what they experienced and witnessed during the film. We instill positive civic engagement through middle school broadcasting studios that were created through ELF grants to produce weekly newscasts. We ignite creativity with an imagination playground, which for you in simply means we purchased foam blocks similar to Legos, but on a larger scale for students to use during their recess time. We foster caring, compassion, and inclusion efforts, one of my favorite grants, providing therapy dogs at a preschool program. Flexible workspace with tables and chairs for our special education program at Emerson Middle School. And most excitingly, and I think a great example of how we partnership with other communities, our own Maine Township has this Stay Youth and Family Services. And that program helped kick off our ELF grant that was funding to assist at-risk students in their middle school. See, we have a mentoring program that we started at Lincoln Middle School, which connects at-risk middle school students with high-achieving Maine South High School students so they can build a relationship and benefit from mentoring, which enhances their school experience. A full description of these grant awards can be viewed on our ELF website. In addition, the principals in District 64 also have on that website a video that highlights the grants in action at each of their schools. Being an educator, I wouldn't be remiss without leaving you with a homework assignment. And this came from our Greg Tang workshop just a few weeks ago, which was offered at all of our schools for all our students and their families. So I have a little assignment here for you to just write down or think about. The challenge is make the number 10, but you can only use the numbers 6, 7, 8, and 9, and you apply any order of operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. This is a new way to approach math and numbers to engage students, and if you're like me, you won't get it on the first try, and maybe you'll need help from a neighbor or a family member or a friend. But if you're kind of like me too, you wouldn't give up this problem, and you won't let go of it until it's solved. And there is a solution to it. And now I'll turn it back to Mimi.
So this school year, ELF received 19 grants from our teachers and administrators, totaling close to $177,000. But we were only able to fund 10 of those grants, totaling about $30,000. So meaning many great ideas weren't able to be fulfilled this school year, and that's why we're here at the Maine Township looking for extra assistance. We do a number of fundraisers. Our biggest one is coming up in a couple of weeks. We do the 5K, we do a Halloween hustle where it's a 5K or 3K run walk where families can come together and run in a healthy, positive way, a 5K or a 3K. And I wanted to mention that because the 5K really is a lot of the community is participating as well. It's at Hodges Park and Park Ridge, so D'April Properties is a real estate company near the park. They're opening their office so we can use the bathrooms, and they're serving coffee. The police department is there to help support us. The teachers are there. 2 of the gym teachers are organizing our tiny tot run so that the kids are so excited to see their teachers outside of school. They're like celebrities. In school, they see them all the time, but out in the community, we have a number of principals and administrators who are running. Even the bus company is coming to serve water for our 5K. So it really is, the community really supports ELF. And so it's been a great organization for 24 years. The Maine Township agency funding would really help support these 10 grants plus more that we have through the next school year. So we thank you for your support and to help our District 64 schools and our early childhood education center serve more than 4,500 kids. So thank you.
Questions? First of all, how did you become aware that Maine Township provided grant funding? And then secondly, on your budget, you list a net income of $4,000. I'm curious why that additional $4,000 that was left over wasn't used to fund some of the grants that couldn't be funded last year.
So, if I could answer the question about the finances first. We hold back some of the money that we have because we have like expenses for the 5K. We have to buy bibs and bags, and we won't raise the money to pay for that until after we have the 5K. So we have to hold back some money in order to just pay operating expenses for the next year. But then we usually try to give away all the money that we have at the end of the school year. And then the other.
What was your other part of the question?
Oh, just curious how you heard about Maine Township's grants.
I was looking at other district foundations, and I saw the District 63 Elementary Learning Foundation, which is more of an after-school program, and it's got it's more of a tied into the school district. Because as a volunteer, I'm always looking at how other school districts and their foundations are raising money to help support their schools. So I saw that District 63 had one, and so here we are.
Well, their expanded learning program.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is an error, or maybe you can explain. On the front page, you're stating your agency total budget as 4,000, but it wouldn't, cannot be correct.
Yeah, that's not
4,000
right.
is the difference between your income
the
and your
net.
expense. So I'm assuming that's not what you meant, correct?
That is not what I meant. So
That's an error, correct?
that is an error on my part.
Okay, wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
On your sheet, you had, 50, 2,000 expense, 4,000 net income. And I thought maybe that's why you put that budget.
Yeah, generally, through our fundraisers, and over the last few years, we've raised between $30,000 and $50,000. We normally have a casino night that raises a lot of money, and we're trying to turn it more family-friendly this year, and so we did the 5K. And we generally give away almost all the money, holding back a little bit for operating expenses for the next year for the events that we're holding.
Another question too about how you arrived at the 29,658.77 number. Where did the 77 cents come from? Usually people apply even dollar amount.
So that was the total amount of grants that we expect to pay out this year for the 2018-19 school year.
So it's based on those 10. It's about 3,000.
Correct. It's the exact dollar amount for those 10 grants in total.
And that are itemized. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.